The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom. Tonight's episode, Enter the Clones of Bruce, starring Ho Chung Dao, Bruce Liang, and Kyung Sok.
How about your name?
My last name is Lee, Bruce Lee.
We just hit a certain moment in history where people were looking for that kind of hero.
The truth, in fact, is we were just at the cusp of that fame when he passed away.
We're really getting into this guy, and all of a sudden he's gone. The next question is, can we find another Bruce Lee?
We want Bruce Lee's movie. Impossible. He died. Yeah, but we still want Bruce Lee's movie, man.
They would go to people in the martial arts schools, the gymnasiums and so forth. Hey, anybody look like Bruce Lee? Anybody who's good?
I didn't know at the time he was a real person because I'd see other people playing Bruce Lee.
He's the king of kung fu.
And they give name called Bruce Lee.
Me?
He's playing Bruce Lee. I looked at him and said, well, if I really stretch my imagination a little bit, yeah.
Dragon Lee, who is this Bruce Lee times 10, this gigantic muscular guy.
You are the famous Bruce? Yes, I'm Bruce.
Hello. My name is Bruce Lee.
Kind of looks a bit like Bruce Lee. You know, give him a pair of big sunglasses and a bowl haircut, and we can turn him into it.
You're looking for me?
Just when you thought you had seen all of his films, he's back.
Get him!
Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee, Bruce Lee.
Bruce Tai.
Bronson Lee.
Bruce Lowe.
Bruce Lee.
A good crew could shoot a complete film in 15 days.
功夫片咧，實牙實齒啊咁樣嘅，一路下就甜入。
It was tough.
Oh, many people get hurt.
我唔係講話呢部電影，我就係李小龍。
呢個係真係功夫嚟嘅。We were constantly successful with these pictures.
First kind of wave of these films pivoted around Bruce Lee's death.
I'll have to find out if there was some foul play, and if there was, I'll avenge.
People wanted more. There was no video at the time. Films like this weren't going to appear on TV for years.
The other was sequels and prequels and pseudo spin-offs. What if he had lived and he had played Indiana Jones? We stick him in New Guinea, and you got Bruce Lee in New Guinea.
這個跟超又不一樣。
Crazy fun.
功夫我似。
So you're Bruce Lee?
Yes.
我希望我可以做返自己。
It was a golden time for the filmmaking.
Cut!
Now, Zach, if you start this episode like that Joe Piscopo commercial, do you remember that one where he acted like Bruce Lee? That was racist.
Well, I mean, you pretty much, this is the best way to open our annual documentary month by you just saying that. And I'm just going to, I think we should keep that in. We're going to keep that in the episode. And everybody that's listening, you have no idea what Corey and I are talking about behind the scenes, but just know that the documentary we're about to talk about tonight, Enter the Clones of Bruce, is in fact not racist. And everything
it has racist elements in it, but they didn't create those racist elements.
They didn't. But many of the, well, let's just say advantageous producers of post Bruce Lee passing away, maybe not racist, but definitely didn't care about it alienating or offending anyone.
Oh,
However, that being said, we will hopefully not do that in said episode.
Yeah. You mean Dragon Lee, a.k.a. Bruce Lee, a.k.a. Bruce Ree.
Well, and Dragon Lee, I believe his real name, and we will get to people are like, what are you talking about? Dragon Lee, his real name is, I believe, Keong Seok, or Kyo Ryong. Kyo Ryong is Dragon, I believe. And then he went by Dragon Lee. We'll get to him in a moment. Wait, am I show
There's so
this?
much to talk about.
Yes, I am. Yeah, there's so much to talk about. So welcome, everybody, to our annual Podcasting After Dark documentary month. We always take the month of August and turn it into a month of documentary viewings. This started about 2 or 3 years ago now. Summers are always tricky with our schedules and whatnot, and breaking down, a 2.5 hour movie like Corey did for Brian for Podcasting After Dark's Patreon pick. But August, busy month for both of us. A lot of traveling going on. It's summertime, all that good stuff. But we're like, let's do some documentaries. And that became we did it one year. We said, oh, that was fun. And we did it. We said, we should do it again. We did it another year. We said, oh, that was fun. And I believe that we're now in year 3, right, Corey?
Yeah, I believe so. Started out with what was it? Lost Soul, that documentary about Richard Stanley's doomed, journey to Island of Dr. Moreau. And, the following year, Zach, you picked one on that director. I'm blanking on the names.
Werner Herzog.
We did you did the Werner Herzog one, My Best Fiend, the first year. And yeah, it's been fun because obviously we pick documentaries that are clearly in our wheelhouse. And, my pick in a couple weeks will be connected to the movie that I broke down last month. But yeah, this is awesome because I also feel like I learn a lot in the month of August. It's a lot of fun to actually dive into these topics that sometimes you'll bring stuff to the table. I think almost every year you bring something to the table that is a very, it's a very big hole in my viewing. I didn't watch a lot of Werner Herzog stuff back in the day. So when we watched My Best Fiend, that was a great sort of introduction to Herzog and to Klaus Kinski. The following year, you did the documentary for...
It's called Blood and Flesh, The Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson.
That's right. So there's another kind of gap in my viewing history. So I learned a lot about Al Adamson in that one. And now, I just got to say, I did not grow up watching a lot of Kung Fu movies. You probably heard all of this on our Knockabout episode that was another Patreon pick that Paulette brought to the table. Kung Fu film called Knockabout from 1977. And I probably talked about on there that I was not a big Kung Fu kid growing up. I was mostly horror and sci-fi and stuff like that and action. And obviously Kung Fu is action, but I didn't watch a lot of it. Looking back on it, it's probably because my dad didn't watch a lot of it, so ergo, I didn't watch a lot of it. I didn't get into Hong Kong cinema until the 90s with John Woo and Chow Yun-fat and everything, so my interest is more in the gun fu category than the kung fu category. So watching this documentary for the episode, The Clones of Bruce, it's all new to me. You know what I mean? I know Bruce Lee died at an early age, but I also didn't really know much about Bruce Lee, the man himself. I didn't know how far Game of Death had gone, how much they had actually shot, and I didn't know where Enter the Dragon sort of fit into things. I didn't know all these things. Now, this documentary doesn't really dive into Bruce Lee too much, but what it dives into is his legacy and very much his immediate legacy, right after his death. And it is so... My God, it's so interesting to see just, how people reacted to his death. And by that, I don't mean crying and stuff, but some people are well, we got to make money off of this. Some people are we got to do this. We got to honor the man. We got to do this. We got to do that. And on the last Wrap Up After Dark, Bodie was on it. And I was kind of telling Bodie, you will notice as you get older, there are people in history that are solely unique personalities, Bruce Lee being one of them. There will never be another Bruce Lee, just like there will never be another Jackie Chan, just like there will never be another Donnie Yen. But Bruce Lee was, I don't think any words can sort of do it justice. He was bigger than his legacy. He was bigger than life itself at that time. And he really pushed a whole film genre into like what, you know, the Western audiences and everything. And this movie dives into that, but it also mostly dives into what came about after his death.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to Podcasting After Dark's documentary series. No, you're right. You're right. And before we actually get into I guess we'll just get into the documentary, because it, like you said, it does delve a little bit into Bruce Lee and his legacy. And it actually, there's a reoccurring thread throughout, rightfully so, of the importance of Bruce Lee and his impact on everyone. But before we get to all of that, and I have a lot to say about it, I want to mention, so this documentary is called Enter the Clones of Bruce. It's directed and produced by David Gregory. And I only bring that name up because, I bring that name up, one, because I think he did a really great job with this documentary. And by the way, you can get this on Amazon for like less than $20 now.
Yeah.
It's on sale.
Yeah, it's not expensive.
Yeah, it's not expensive at all. And
it's a Severin Blu-ray, by the way.
Yeah, you can watch it on Amazon Prime or Tubi or whatever, but the physical copy, if you want to own that, you can do it there. I believe Severin put out a box set of like several of the movies that are mentioned in this. I was very tempted to buy it, a la Robert Ortiz, because I'm sure Robert was eyeing it as well, but I did not. I'm kind of regretting that now, because I feel like, oh man, it would have been nice to have the whole collection of some of these movies. So many of them we'll talk about in this episode. But David Gregory is known for, besides this, for producing Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley, like Corey brought to the table, Color Out of Space, which is what we broke down on Podcasting After Dark a few years ago. Richard Stanley, of course, directed that. And Blood and Flesh, The Real Life and Ghastly Death of Al Adamson, which Corey just mentioned. That was my pick last year. This is all coincidental. I had no idea, but it is. I
didn't either. When I started rattling everything off, I had no idea. I didn't even open the IMDb page yet. He also worked on the Black Emanuel box set and everything. So it's a personal favorite of mine.
Well, so it sounds to me like he's connected to Severin in some way, which makes sense. But you know what? He did a great job. This documentary is very extensive. It interviews. They have interviews with, I believe, like 4 or 5 of the different quote unquote clones of Bruce. It's an emotional journey. I'll just say it right now. Like the tail end of this documentary is sad, because you hear why, like these actors went into making these movies with the best intentions of maybe kind of making a name for themselves, but obviously they were overshadowed by Bruce Lee. And it's hard not to be overshadowed by Bruce Lee, because Bruce is an icon, and he was only, he really got his start on the Green Hornet in 1966. I believe he started really getting into acting in like 1964. And he only made like 4 movies total as far as like feature films are concerned. Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, also known as Return of the Dragon, and of course, Enter the Dragon. And then he died in 1973, at the age of 31 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. 34, I think.
34, because he was born in 1960. That's right. I believe he was born in 1960. I'm going off the top of my head right now, guys. I'm not using notes for this. No, sorry. He was born in 1940. He died in 1973. Because they say that in the documentary. So he died at the age of 32.
Oof. God
which is
damn.
Wild. And they loosely touch upon potential reasons why he died. It's always been a controversy. Like, was he killed? I don't think he was. Did he OD? I don't think he did. It sounded like it was a combination of allergic reactions to certain supplements he was taking. And also too, like, it's really brief, but I want to bring it up to you, Corey. They mentioned that he essentially was giving himself like electric shock treatments, and he's shocked to get his body to have a reaction. He was speeding up the ability to have those, famous 1-inch punches, which is all about reaction, right? And this was helping him achieve that at a faster rate. when you're chasing that dragon, no pun intended, it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah, I mean, what do they say? You know, when the candle, he's burning the candle on both ends. And unfortunately, I think I'm in your camp of things where I think it's a combination of things. I don't buy into the curse, or anything like that. I don't buy into that he was killed or anything like that. I think he just kind of did things to his body that I just don't think he should have. And maybe it was just a combination of things. It's kind of almost, I think, kind of like how Heath Ledger. I don't think Heath Ledger didn't intend to kill himself, but he mixed certain, barbiturates and alcohol or whatever. And, he unfortunately passed away. I think I kind of view Bruce Lee is sort of similar in that regard. But yeah, he this documentary, you mentioned it, they talked to quite a few people. I'll just rattle off some of the cool names that they talked to. Like it's their stage names that they talked to that I wrote down. Bruce Lee, Dragon Lee, Bruce Lee. They talked to Bola Young's son. They talked to Angela Mao. They talked to Ron Van Cleef. And then they mentioned some other names and everything. And then we get some producers behind the scenes too. So this documentary they are talking to the quote unquote clones of Bruce in this. And I got to say, we're going to talk about so much. There's so much to unpack here. And it's so much is all new to me. But the biggest takeaway from each one seemed to be that they didn't relish being an imposter. They didn't relish trying to be Bruce Lee, even though a lot of them, obviously revered him, loved him. Some of them trained under him and everything. Nobody wanted to be him, try to replace him. But work is work. And another common theme is a lot of these guys grew up poor, and martial arts was sort of a way out of that sort of that lifestyle and everything and into a better world. And I don't think you turn down jobs when you're young and hungry and wanting to make a name for yourself.
No. And you rattled off the names of each of these guys. And this documentary is about a year or so old. So I don't want to totally spill the beans on everything because I really want to encourage everyone to go watch it. So we'll be careful as far as certain details are concerned, but I think what we talk about is not going to take away from the fact that people should go watch this and see this. At the onset, I'm just going to go watch it. It's great. They really delve into the reason why some of these guys continue to do it so frequently. One in particular, Burma, quote unquote, Bruce Lee, L.E., who's described as being a workaholic because the guy just did so much. And he probably had one of the most colorful careers out of all the Bruces because he went on to do Italian martial art movies, which have their own look to them as well. He made a cameo in Pieces, the slasher movie.
For some weird reason. But
we'll get that in a second. But Corey said that there's extensive interviews with a lot of different people that knew Bruce well. One in particular, Andre Morgan, who's a producer of Golden Harvest here in the United States. Golden Harvest production company was one of the bigger production companies in martial arts.
It was that and Shaw Brothers were kind of the two, I'd say they're the two biggest names back then.
And he was the American producer who was responsible for, getting talent, most notably finishing Bruce Lee's final film that he never completed, being Game of Death. Game of Death, by the way, which there's many arcade video games that seem inspired by Game of Death. That movie he was making before he shot Enter the Dragon, but he went to go make Enter the Dragon, then died, never finished Game of Death. But Andre Morgan, and I only bring his name up specifically because there's a lot of great names that we may not mention that are in this documentary. Andre Morgan also produced Megaforce and worked with Hal Needham. He produced Cannonball Run as well. He's actually in the Making Megaforce doc. Bob Lindemeyer interviewed him. He's a trip, that guy. And, acknowledges in the documentary that the Game of Death film was probably one of the most exploitative out of all of the exploitation films that came out. to exploit Bruce Lee. Game of Death was probably the worst. Because...
Yeah, because they had 15 minutes of, essentially, once they cut it down, they had 30 minutes of footage cut down to usable 15 minutes. And the way that they had to, my God, the way that they had to finish it. There was one scene where he's like, the actor is looking into a mirror and they put a cutout of Bruce Lee's face on the mirror, and it's just
cardboard.
A cardboard cutout. It's just a static cardboard cutout. The actor's kind of behind it. Remarkably, I'd say they did a great job of like getting the head size right and everything, but it's just a cardboard cutout of Bruce Lee. It's quite remarkable. But of all the exploitative ones, I feel like that was the most accidental exploitative, because I think obviously they knew they had the footage and they wanted to, obviously make some money and everything, but I do think that they wanted to finish the film the best that they could. And unfortunately at the time, with no CGI, face mapping and stuff like that, you had to do what you had to do, and it turned out to kind of be the worst.
Yeah. Side note behind the scenes, Richard Norton, who passed away earlier this year, rest in peace, stayed at our house here, him and Judy. I'm not name dropping, it's relevant because while he was here, he had a meeting with Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, and to discuss a potential live show called Enter the Dragon coming to Vegas. And because someone was looking to produce it, and I think he was like the liaison between the producer and Shannon Lee, it didn't come to fruition, or it hasn't yet. They're looking to do something like a Cirque du Soleil kind of deal, high action. Sounds amazing. But Shannon had, Richard had said to me that Shannon was very protective of the Bruce Lee name and like the legacy, preserving the legacy. And this documentary proves why they're so protective, because once he died in 1973, and like you guys got to transport back into this time. Now we get everything fed to us anywhere you want it on YouTube, right? There was no YouTube back then. There was no video. There's no VHS. There was no television access. So to see a different Bruce Lee movie coming out almost like every single week, that was supposed to be Bruce Lee, and the mystery, like, is he still alive? Kind of an Elvis, Andy Kaufman thing. Like, he's not dead. He's still alive. For that fever to be going on amidst the family trying to grieve, Shannon and Brandon Lee lost their father, Linda lost her husband, and not really getting a chance to kind of just sit with that.
Yeah, to even process it,
Yeah, because and I don't know if they were fully aware of all these movies. I'm sure Linda was, at least,
Well, I think she was trying to fight some of them, but the thing is, they would do things like, Bruce L.I. and us
right.
Stupid Americans, obviously they'd put the name small, and it'd be in the vein of Bruce Lee, you'd say in the vein of really tiny, but then you put Bruce Lee and giant, and we're just oh yeah, it's Bruce Lee. And unfortunately, copyrights and stuff like that, it's no, L-E-E and L-I are two different names, and that would still hold up today. I mean, obviously it's in poor taste, but it's technically, I think most of them, it's not really illegal. It seemed like there were a couple of them that were a little bit skirting some regulations. Like one movie showed the entire 30-minute funeral. Who knows if they've even got the rights or whatever to, I'm sure no one signed any kinds of rights for that, and whatnot. And then even in one movie, what was that one with Jane Seymour? They actually just filmed being at a party, and the actor just shook Jane Seymour's hand, and then they put starring Jane Seymour in the title.
Yes,
it's
so
it's crazy.
It was Jack Klugman and Jane Seymour. Yeah. It was Burma Bruce Lee, L.E., I believe. He was the workhorse, the one who was doing movie upon movie. Phenomenal. Side note, all of these guys are phenomenal performers, martial artists across the board.
But in their own right, they're fantastic in their own right. Even one of them, I think it was Dragon Lee, where his agent was you actually would have been bigger if Bruce Lee never existed, because you're always going to be in his shadow. But these guys were, I don't think that, like, I mean, if you're going to imitate the greatest martial artist of all time, you kind of have to still be good at martial arts on your own as well.
Right. Yeah. Bruce Lee, L.I., who's featured predominantly throughout this, he's probably the one featured the most. And he has one of the saddest kind of like, you know, post stories after, I'll just say it now, like, well, no, I won't. It's really sad. Like, you know, but what he's done with his life since he became an actor is really special. And he seems like a really legit dude.
Yeah.
Side note, and I'm going to say that a lot because it'll just, you know, obviously derail from the conversation. They screened this at the Egyptian, I believe, last year. And I think all four, or like the top four of the Bruces that are featured in this, were at that screening, and they did a Q&A as well. How cool is that? And these guys felt so great about it. There's one Bruce, Bruce Liang, and he
Is he the one with the wine, all the wine around him?
Yes. He looks like a rock star.
He does. He's definitely wearing a wig.
Yeah, he's definitely wearing a wig, but I'm like, you know what? This dude can wear that wig and rock it, because he was the one who probably did the most bizarre versions of the Bruce Lee movies. He did one called The Dragon Lives Again, where he battles Dracula and Popeye and Emmanuel and James Bond and mummies. I'm like watching this, I'm going, oh, and he's got a like tremendous boner in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
And that's all like in heaven or something like that, or hell. It's the like, you know, the range of these films, you know, they start out as like biopics, essentially. Which is interesting because, you know, they start out being like, okay, this guy is obviously not Bruce Lee, but he's playing Bruce Lee because it's a biopic. Then they kind of map the trajectory of all of this, and then like sort of the next step was like, okay, well, you know, a couple years later, we got the biopics out. Now we're getting sort of like new movies. We're getting some hodgepodge films. Then it's like, oh, well, you know, what if like Bruce Lee lived long enough to like play like James Bond character or something? So they actually get like these weird wish fulfillment movies where it's like Bruce Lee wish fulfillment. And that also ties into Bolo Young, because a lot of his movies, because he didn't fight Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon, right? So like everybody wanted to kind of see that fight happen because it was kind of like touted up and everything, and everybody wanted to see Bolo Young fight Bruce Lee. We could never do it in real life, so Bolo Young was in a lot of these Bruceploitation films because it's, again, wish fulfillment. And then the trajectory after that is these guys are kind of start branching off into their own thing. Some of them focus more on comedic side of things. Some of them focus on like a little bit more in a different direction. But that's kind of like how this like, I couldn't even get a sense of like how long this went on for. I'm guessing like maybe 4 or 5 years or something like that. I mean, it was like, it seemed to me like it was a mad dash at the beginning to try to see how many movies people could just get out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really the producers who are the slime balls. And does that make sense? Of course it does. I kind of feel a little bit like, you know, Andre Morgan is interviewed. I don't know him personally, but I'm like, well, he's a producer. He's got to get shit done. You know, if you see him in the Making Megaforce, he's kind of a little bit like a little ego going on there. But in this, of course, he comes across very like somber and very respectful towards the Bruce Lee legacy. But I'm like, bro, you were exploiting this too. But you're right. You know, initially it was like, these were like tribute. These were making of, or not making of. These were like you said, they're biopics.
Like biopics, yeah.
And one of them was called The Dragon Lives. I think that's the first one that came out with Bruce Lee. And I remember watching that on Creature Features Saturday, you know, in Michigan, because these movies, like you said, you didn't grow up watching them, but Paulette, when she chose Knockabout back in the day for a Patreon pick, which you can do too if you go to patreon.com/podcastingafterdark, I think I said this again in that episode, I grew up watching these exploitation films and not liking them back then. I was like, oh, who's this? This is not Bruce Lee. This is not the guy. Because I had Bruce Lee's poster on my wall. I still have the bio books that I got from the Kung Fu store down the street from my house because I was so obsessed with Bruce Lee. I made a Bruce Lee statue out of clay not a dreidel. And you know, I was obsessed with Bruce Lee. And so when these movies came out, I was like, a Quick Kick was one of my favorite G.I. Joes. And then he opened his mouth and I'm like, that's not cool. But I was like, this is not cool. Now I look at it and go, this is so schlocky, so much fun.
Yeah.
In 2025. This is a very interesting film to watch in 2025 because so often, Corey, like in 2025, people go, oh, it's problematic, or, you know, can't do that anymore. But there's the flip side to that, the positive, where in 2025, we can watch these movies that were trash back in the day for just being garbage or exploitation, watch them now and go, man, this is entertaining as hell. Because that's the flip side in 2025. That's the beautiful thing. That's the thing I look at and go, there are some silver linings in 2025, because you can look at these films that were cheeseball back in the day and now look at them and go, man, that is so much fun. Because Bruce Lee fighting a bunch of mummies who have like are adjoined like appendages. Yeah, you just got to see the clip in the documentary.
It's wild. I mean, this documentary almost plays as like one of those like checklist, you know, watch list for movies that you want to see.
Totally.
I especially want to see the one with all the boobies. By the way,
Sure
there's a lot
you
of
do.
boobies in this documentary too.
I was going to watch it with Bodhi, and then I'm like, why does it say sexual situations? And
I
then
mean,
I'm like,
it is
"Oh,
a
boy."
Severin film, so you should probably, not. But it was interesting because they also, they touch on the like a little bit of the blaxploitation side of things with Jim Kelly, and then also with like Ron Van Cleef, who was AKA the Black Dragon. So they kind of touch on these like little sub genres as well, which is interesting because this already is like a sub genre anyways, like these knockoff Bruce Lee stuff. But yeah, they dive into a little bit of that, not much, but they address it, because it did sort of spin out also from the Bruce Lee era, and they also dive in a little bit into like some of the female spin-offs like Angela Mao and stuff like that. Although I was like, I wonder if like Cynthia Rothrock was going to pop up. She doesn't, although they do interview Godfrey Ho in this, who, he directed Undefeatable and a lot of much better Cynthia Rothrock films too.
Yeah, this is true. You mentioned Angela Mao, aka Queen of the Deep Thrust.
Yes.
And she's, Enter the Dragon comes up often in this. One of the actors, one of the white martial artists who was in Enter the Dragon is in this quite a bit, which is cool to see that guy after so many years. Because I'm like, this is one of those things where Enter the Dragon was a movie that I think even non-martial art fans have seen, right?
Yeah.
And
it's the breakout one. It's the one that has the the Venn diagram crossover is like, it's a film that you watch like in film school,
Right, exactly. And, I'm blanking on the guy's name right now, and I didn't write it down. Just go watch the documentary and you'll know who I'm talking about.
We're not talking about Chuck Norris.
No, we're not. But for many years I was like, oh, is that Chuck Norris? It's not. You mentioned, so Angela Mao was in Enter the Dragon in the beginning. I believe she plays like his sister. She's the character that gets killed. She's the catalyst for Bruce wanting to go to the island to basically investigate what the hell's going on this mysterious island. Enter the Dragon's a classic. John Saxon is the one that fights Bolo Young in Enter the Dragon. And then, of course, Jim Kelly is in Enter the Dragon as well. Unfortunately, his character dies in Enter the Dragon, sadly, because he's such a badass. And it is cool that he gets some respect in this little tribute, because I think people should seek out his movies. They're a step above the Bruce Lee exploitation movies, but they're not that great. They're as good as Ron Van Cleef's movies, and it's cool to see Ron Van Cleef in this documentary now, looking good. It is interesting about Bolo Young's son being in this, and then making the comment that he doesn't know his dad.
Yeah,
I'm
he
like,
didn't.
damn,
Yeah.
this is a little. Wait, I want to know more about that. He's like, I forget exactly the exact line he says, but he's like, I didn't know him very well because he was always gone. And I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah, I did a little double take. I didn't rewind it, but I was like, oh, that was, that had a lot of emotion behind it.
Right. But yeah, he's featured in it. There's a real quick glimpse, but the guy who plays Wind in Big Trouble in Little China, the one who blows up at the end, like, I'm watching the movies and he pops up in one of the Bruce Lee knockoff films. I'm like, oh, I know that's the guy from Big Trouble in Little China. Anyways, there are
the bad guy in Enter the Dragon with the claws, the claw hand, he popped up in only one of these Bruceploitation films, which I think it was like considered one of the better ones, but obviously put a little asterisk next to that, considering none of these are really all that great. And a lot of them were made almost guerrilla style.
Right.
Some of them were made in Rome that way, where they would have to actually, basically hide the camera and then say, okay, go. And then they would fight, and then they would just essentially just run away. And in the movie, it looks like they're running away because that's what, they're running to their next, fight or whatever. But really, they're just running out of that setting so they can, run away from the cops. And you can see people on the street just being like, why are these two people fighting?
Doing like a double. Yeah, it's really, that's a really funny moment in the documentary.
But the thing is, like, obviously Shaw Brothers, Golden Harvest and everything, these are huge studios. They're not making a lot of these. These are the little hungry studios. These are the little, yes, they are making some, but the bulk of them are being made independent style. And that means guerrilla, guerrilla filmmaking, in and out, and you're not getting permits and stuff like that. People are getting hurt. They had every single one of these guys and lady talk about, what they broke, what, on shoots, everything they got messed up on and everything. And I will say, as a side note, Zach, I started noticing about halfway through the movie, all the guys and I now as well, they all have calluses on their knuckles. Their hands are gross looking, every single one of them.
Yeah, they're destroyed from these guys training. I think one of the guys who has a lot of regrets about not being a family man, one of the Bruces. By the way, Bruce Lee, L.I., who was starred in the initial exploitation movies.
He was kind of the first one.
Yeah, his name is Ho Chung Dao, T-A-O. I just want to make sure, I got that right. And but I believe, like, it wasn't Casanova Wong, though. That guy's name is a great name.
I saw that. They only talked to him for like 1 second, but I was like, I want to be friends with that guy.
Yes. And then, of course, there's Bruce Lowe, L-O. His name is Yasuaki Kurata. He's Japanese. He didn't even know that his name was being called Bruce Lowe.
yeah, he had no idea. In America, he was being referred to as Bruce Lowe, and he's like, well, I'm Japanese, first of all.
But the one guy I was talking about who, his hands are covered in, he seems like he's kind of a businessman now, and which is cool. It wasn't just Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, by the way, and I bring those guys' names up on purpose because, it wasn't just those guys putting their lives on the line. Every single one of these actors in Hong Kong making these movies were shooting guerrilla style. So, breaking their, and the women too, like everybody was getting trashed and hurt, breaking their, what do you call it? Tailbone, or breaking their arm, or breaking their shoulder.
Or getting stabbed with a fork and then still having to finish the scene.
Right. Normal stuff.
Normal shit.
Yeah. Like, it is wild, the stories that they tell in this documentary about that stuff, because you're like, oh yeah, no, that only happened on Jackie Chan movie sets. No, this happened everywhere back then. And I bring up Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung because those guys both got their starts in these exploitation movies. Sammo Hung was actually in Game of Death with Colleen Camp, by the way.
Yeah. And Sammo Hung's was interesting because his was actually one of the best of the Bruceploitation films, because it was good because he wasn't playing Bruce Lee, but he was playing someone who idolized Bruce Lee. So he wasn't trying to act like Bruce Lee, but yet he was still acting like Bruce Lee. And then what was it? Jackie Chan did like sort of a sequel to a Bruce Lee film where I think it was like The Boss 2 or something, where he's actually playing Bruce Lee's character, but he's not technically trying to be Bruce Lee, but he's playing the character, which I don't think is that egregious. We see plenty of movies do that in America too, where you have like a different, actor playing, I mean, for God's sakes, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter. Remember in Manhunter, the very first one, it's played by what's his name? And then it's played by what's his name? And
well, Brian Cox obviously was Hannibal Lecter
in the first one. Yep, and then obviously my brain's fried. What the fuck?
Anthony Hopkins. Yeah,
there you go. My God, thank you for assisting me, Zach.
I was literally just talking about
people are driving off the road listening to me trying to recall those names. But the point is that like I don't think that's as egregious, and Jackie Chan wasn't trying to like act like Bruce Lee. He was trying to act like the character.
Yeah, because I mean, like, how many times does something get recast? How many different Batmans have we had, and so it's the character. No one has a problem with that. I think it was just so like close to when Bruce Lee died, and I'll go back to it again because when I said it earlier, the family didn't. I don't think the world didn't have a chance to mourn Bruce Lee being gone. It was like you immediately jumped into, we have all this B-roll footage of Bruce Lee as the Green Hornet and Kato. Let's make that into a movie.
Yeah.
Which they did.
Yeah, holy shit. They turned, they said they took all the best parts of like every episode they could find or whatever, and they made 2 movies out of it. It's just basically essentially Kato. So it's still Bruce Lee, but it's just the TV show made into a movie. And one thing that obviously I wasn't alive when this happened. It's like he literally died at the top of his popularity. I mean, he might have kept going up. He might have been going more and more popular, but like we are talking a level of popularity that is cross-generational, cross-cultural, like people who are not, kung fu or action movie people, and there weren't really that many kung fu movies back then, are watching Bruce Lee. He's like our grandparents would have watched him, it's like that's how big he was. And then to all of a sudden have him die and literally the entire world. So, and also roll back a little bit. He's not just popular here. He's popular in France. He's popular here. He's popular in China. He is essentially worldwide, and everyone is like ravenous worldwide for more Bruce Lee stuff. Like you can't, if he had died, even maybe a year later, it might not have been the same. Like he died when he was at the peak of his game at that point.
Yeah. And so obviously these imitators come in and suddenly now it's like, wait, this isn't what like you said, the posters were so deceiving. And
although a lot of them had really cool art though.
They really did. But like some of them legit had the actual actor on them. Some of Bruce Lee's posters had his actual image on there. And it was Dragon Lee. You're right. It was Dragon Lee who had those massive, he was the one that stood out to me for having the calluses on his fingers. And he was the one that, regretted not being more attentive to his family back in the day. Yeah. Dragon Lee, by the way, they were often imitating Bruce Lee. Like you said, Jackie Chan was imitating the character, but Dragon Lee seemed to want to make his own mark, like being himself, because he, while I forget the commentator, he wrote a book about Bruceploitation, but he was talking about the nunchakas. He kept calling them nunchakas. I'm like, you mean nunchucks? Sure, whatever we call them here in the United States. The nunchakas, Bruce Lee was known for using nunchakas very well. Well, Dragon Lee made he made thumbchucks, which was like a one side of a chain went around his thumb, and the other side was the bat part of the nunchuck. It was so sick. And then he was another weapon he made in one of his movies was like magnet hands, which makes total sense. Like a steel sword. If you take 2 magnets and put them against each other, you can block it. That was cool. Like these are things that I feel like set them apart from the typical, trying to rehash Bruce Lee's life, which was cool. Like you said, these kind of fantasy films, what Bruce Lee might have made had he still lived. I think he would have ended up just being fully mainstream in the United States, and then relegated to a TV show, and who knows what would happen after that.
Yeah, it'd fade away, and he probably wouldn't be as mythical as he is today. But yeah, it seemed like they all had their sort of things that they're trying to do. Bruce Lee seemed to like kind of want to preserve the legacy of Bruce Lee's, kung fu, and then Bruce, the other one from Myanmar, or now Burma.
Bruce Lee, L.E.
Yeah, I think he wanted to just, succeed. Just be.
He wanted to make money.
He wanted to make money, but also be his own, person and everything like that. But all of them were in the shadow of Bruce Lee, some way, shape, or form. I mean, and that includes Ron Van Cleef. I mean, he was also in the shadow of it as well. Same as Jesus Christ, same as Jim Kelly. It's just like, but they also. They not so much the shadow, like they existed, or they had careers because of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is the one that gave Ron Van Cleef his Black Dragon nickname at a conference or something. I don't know I can't remember if they were sparring or whatever, but Bruce Lee's like, you have the soul of the dragon, and I call you the Black Dragon. And I'm like, oh, that might be racist, but that's okay. That's cool, And Ron Van Cleef, like he had a career and everything, So it's the legacy of the man extended way past his life expectancy.
Totally.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages. Hey everybody, Corey here.
And it's me, Zach.
We wanted to tell you about our new show called The Coscarelli Factor.
You can find it on our Patreon at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. The Coscarelli Factor covers every single film that Don Coscarelli has directed. And some other little bonus features in there too, like maybe the music videos he directed as well.
That's right. You can find all the episodes under the Auteur de Force tier on our Patreon page. Like Zach said, that's patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. And if you sign up today, you will get access to the complete Carpenter Factor series, where Zach and I went through every single movie that John Carpenter directed, from Dark Star all the way to, all the way till the end. So sign up today to our Patreon page, and you can unlock all kinds of other things as well, like ad-free episodes and our monthly Wrap-Up After Dark show.
Patreon helps keep the lights on in the podcasting after dark world. It gets pretty dark out there at night, and all your support keeps us from getting too scared.
And thank you to everyone who's signed up to our Patreon page. We really appreciate it. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side.
And now, back to the show.
By the way, I want to see that Ron Van Cleef movie, because it looks very spicy, if you will.
So does some like the Jim Kelly stuff too, because that's like a bit of like blaxploitation with Bruceploitation and everything.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing about Jim Kelly, which is really interesting. Like, no one looked like him back in the day either. There was no one else like Bruce Lee. I don't think there was anyone else like Jim Kelly. You had guys like Dolomite. You had guys like, Isaac Hayes and Fred Williamson and Jim Brown and like blaxploitation actors. But to have, I think of like Michael J. White. And why is that guy not having a bigger career, by the way, is beyond me. He's like the only legit black martial artist leading man that I've ever seen, right? Who's like legit. I'm not talking about guys who had trained just for a movie and then suddenly you're like, oh, that guy's a great fighter. No.
Yeah.
Michael J. White is like several degree black belt. The guy is tough as nails. He should be in more stuff. I don't know why he's not. Maybe that's a personal choice. Anyways, Jim Kelly, same deal. Jim Kelly was like a legit martial artist, badass guy. And I'm like, this guy's got a look to him, with his big afro and like really tall and lean. He was, when I saw him in Enter the Dragon, talk about it like a 3-man powerhouse. Him, John Saxon, and Bruce Lee. Like, those are 3 badass looking dudes. And John Saxon learned to fight in Enter the Dragon thanks to Bruce Lee. He made him look cool. He was the only like legit actor in that, who's just an actor. Nowadays, you like expect everybody to know how to fight, it's just an interesting thing to think about. But I think Jim Kelly should have had a much bigger career. I think he passed away at a younger age too. I didn't track it.
No, he passed away in 2013.
Jim Kelly did?
Yeah, I thought he passed away a long time ago.
That's mind blowing. I thought that was wow, that's wild. Okay.
I don't, and that's the thing. I mean, I don't know much about his career or anything. I was just looking, on his IMDb while you were talking, and yeah, he passed away in 2013.
Wow,
I had
that's
no clue.
shocking. So
I always thought he was like he passed away in the 90s or something.
Then that's kind of even more upsetting because I'm like, why is that dude not been, why do we give second chances to all these other actors but not a guy like that? Like that guy should have been, come on, Tarantino, like stop making foot movies and put that guy in a film. Seriously, come on. Another side note, there was a line in one of the Dragon Lee movies. I think it was called The Real Bruce Lee. And they showed the trailer. That's the other thing too. I love these old school trailers that they show throughout, but they're like the real Bruce Lee, not yet rated, but due to the action, we can expect it to be R.
Yeah, like, I love that.
Awesome. I think that was also the one with Bolo Young, and he had like a Hitler mustache, and I'm like, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, good job, Bolo. I don't know what's going on there.
We also had exploitation to the point where a guy looked like Charles Bronson as Bruce Lee. His name, and so they call him Bronson Lee.
I was like, they didn't talk to him, but he's actually one of my favorites because I'm like, I love that. I find it so fascinating that Charles Bronson was, ever a star. I mean, he's kind of an ugly dude. I mean, he's cool, but he's definitely an ugly dude. But then there's like all these like Charles Bronson sort of impersonators. There's that.
Yeah,
one
have you
that's
seen
like,
one who got a movie out of it?
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about.
I sure do.
And then there was Bronson Lee, which was like an Asian Charles Bronson kung fu guy. I'm like, God bless the 70s.
It's amazing.
Dude,
yeah.
It's I mean, this documentary, guys and gals, there is a lot of information in this documentary. It's an hour and a half, but they cover a lot of ground. It's not it's not just a straight trajectory and talking about maybe one movie being made. No, they have a lot of stuff that they dive deeper into some things. I kind of wish they dived into other things, but I understand. So if anything, it just kind of made me be like, okay, I want to learn more about this or learn more about that, maybe dive into that. But like, making a documentary about such a micro niche part of film history, they packed a lot of information into it, and they talked to a lot of big people, which was really, really impressive. And it's, like I said, I was just like, holy crap, like this is a lot of information that I didn't know anything about, and I find all of this just utterly fascinating.
Yeah, I appreciate that they sought out people that, I mean, let's be honest, 90% of the people in this film, I think, exploitation fans they'll have no clue who these people are. They'll be like, who's this guy? Who's that guy? But they sought out everybody. There's one reoccurring character actor in the Bruce Lee movies, and he shows up in a lot of the knockoffs as well. And he's like the Asian Don Knotts, basically.
Yeah, skinny guy with like the ponytail or whatever. No,
yeah.
he's got a ponytail now, but back then he was kind of like a little bit of longer hair or whatever. Yeah,
that's the guy I want to party with. That guy, he's so entertaining, and like they get everybody in this. They get people that we're like. This is one of those documentaries where you go, oh my gosh, I totally remember seeing that guy, that side character, in movies, in Bruce Lee movies, and he's in this, you know, and like you and I both brought up, Angela Mao. No one knew where she was for almost 35 years, and they tracked her down, and she retired from the business. But they were able to talk to her for a little bit, which was really cool. this film is like, it's not just, I think it's important for film lovers because it's a really interesting time that we'll never see again. There was never, it's like if Elvis Presley died and
when he was skinny and good looking, not fat.
Yeah, skinny and good looking at the height of his career, making movies, they probably would have done, you probably would have seen more than just guys imitating him in Vegas on stage. You would have seen someone trying to recreate the magic of Elvis, as an actor as well. Like it would have been so much more than that. If Michael Jackson had died when Thriller came out, you would have seen a plethora of that new pop star trying to recreate that magic. I don't think we like you said that with Heath Ledger. I think about with like Brandon Lee when you think about tragic people when they die, but James Dean died. You didn't suddenly see Hollywood trying to make the next James Dean. They'll just because Bruce Lee was way more unique. I think Bruce Lee he's maybe the most unique entertainer ever, in my opinion.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you can argue that against it, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely a unique human. Never will there be another one, but like I said, there'll also never be another Jackie Chan. But yeah, dude, like I think this happened at the not quote unquote the right moment, but like it wouldn't have happened any other time in history, I don't think. It was also because like he was so unique and new to like audiences as being like also an Asian leading man. Like you can't we can't have this conversation without also addressing the fact that like up until Bruce Lee, most Asian actors were they were even no matter what nationality they were a Japanese soldier in a World War II movie, they were running someone's rickshaw, or they were a female, a geisha or a hooker. I'm talking about these are the roles that Asian actors would get. And I know that the Asian film community, the acting community still has, problem with representation too. I think obviously so does the Hispanic film community too. A lot of people do. But like you can't like when James Dean died, yes, there's no other James Dean. He's also a unique person.
But he's also a white guy.
There was also other good-looking white guys with big hair. That existed. There had never been an Asian leading man like this, and like I said, cross-cultural. Like everyone knew him. Everyone loved him. God, think back of fucking Breakfast at Tiffany's, what's his nuts? Fucking Mickey Rooney playing an Asian man. Like like, my God, there were so many Asian actors, but yeah, you had to have fucking Mickey Rooney doing a very stereotypical Asian person, and it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
But like Bruce Lee was the real deal, and he was an actor, and he was a good actor, and he was a fun actor to watch, and he died at the peak of his popularity and him being so unique, and not just a good kung fu guy, like literally one of the best to ever exist. These are just so many elements that go into his legacy and how important he is, but these are also all the reasons that he made the studios some money in a short amount of time, and they're like, oh no, we want to keep making that money, so we need to capitalize on this.
Yeah, and you're right, 100% accurate and right about like representation in Hollywood. It's always been horrible for non-white people and so
non-straight white people.
Yeah, because the minute you come out and suddenly you're blacklisted. Just look at our boy from Cemetery Man, like what happened to his career. But specifically talking about like Asian representation in 1973 when Enter the Dragon came out and everyone's like, oh my God, this is amazing. You still look at that and you're like, well, it's still an ensemble because you've got John Saxon and Jim Kelly, but Bruce Lee was the lead actor in that. Nothing else up until that point looked like a Bruce Lee movie to mainstream Hollywood, and nothing after that looked like a Bruce Lee movie. I think of Jackie Chan, Hollywood tried to mainstream him by he did a movie called The Protector with Danny Aiello, which was like a cop movie. It's not a very good cop movie. And I think he was also in like another film that didn't do very well, but like he was in Cannonball Run as like the stereotypical, Asian guy who can't drive well or something like that. It was very exploitative. And that was the typical, like you think about, you go into the 80s and then in the 90s, like, they made Steven Seagal squint and like, oh, is that guy Asian? Oh, he's part Asian, right? Okay, cool. Let's do that. But no. And
and then we all saw Steven Seagal run and we're like, ew, gross.
Yeah. And then you realize this guy's probably a piece of crap because of the way he runs. And yes, he is.
Yeah. And yes, by the way, there are a bunch of like mega cuts of him running and he runs like an asshole.
Oh yeah. I've praised the hell out of those things on $2 late fees for Martial Art Madness. But like, it's so sad because like you're making martial art movies, but you're putting white actors in the leads for all these movies. And it's like, oh my God, what would have happened had Bruce Lee lived with his star power, with his pull, and maybe for him to be like, no, we're not doing that. We're not putting like guy. That guy can play my boss at the business I work at, but I don't want him throwing kicks like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, what a world it would have been, because I'm glad they hit upon, up until that point, what representation looked like in Hollywood for Asian actors, but we didn't really see that much. Oh, Keanu Reeves is part Asian. Oh, cool. Like, yeah, but that's not, you think about all these amazing Asian actors who should have been leading men and women and didn't get their due diligence. This movie kind of, I think, will spark that conversation, which I think is good. I think ultimately that's a good thing. And I think it's great that this documentary shined a light on all of these actors who, while they were quote unquote clones of Bruce Lee, they're still human beings trying to make a career in film. And so at the end of the day, like all of these guys were just trying to do their best. And I think that's what came across. And I think out of all of them, Bruce Lee is the one who has the kind of the biggest arc and story, that they highlight. But all of them in some way, it's like, go watch an exploitation film and laugh at it and just know that now.
But know that there's human beings still made that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there are still like humans behind it that have feelings, probably the producers don't, but the actors do. And we all know actors are sensitive anyways. But yeah, it is interesting because this documentary is about a very exploitative moment in cinema, a very exploitative subgenre of cinema, but the documentary itself is not exploitative. It's very, there's a lot of reverence to both Bruce Lee's memory, kind of a lot of some apologies, and everything like that. But it's also it's a lot of reverence for the actors that they put their reputation on the line, or for some cases, like put their reputation on pause in order to do this. It's a gig for a lot of them, and then it kind of blew up into something bigger, and they even tried to maybe make it their own, but it's kind of hard to change course on some things that are so big. But the documentary, like you said, it does a great job of shining a light on all of these human beings that were the clones of Bruce Lee, and their fathers, their husbands, they're somebody's grandson. They all had motives, you know what I mean? And obviously, we're obviously gonna have to go by the the director's point of view and everything, but at least it made it sound like all their motives were sincere, but some of them just got caught up in the rigmarole of it all.
Yeah, Dragon Lee is the one in particular who talks about how he regrets that. But I think in the movie wraps up, or the documentary wraps up really nicely at the end, kind of, showing where these guys are at now. And some of them, Bruce Lee in particular, who seems to
have found a different calling later in life.
For sure. And I love that.
Me too.
I love, look, one of my favorite martial art movies of all time, obviously, is Best of the Best. And while Eric Roberts is the quote unquote star of that film, he's not the lead. It's really Philip Ree, the guy who, is Tommy Lee, and his brother Simon, who obviously is the quote unquote villain in Best of the Best. But Philip Ree and Simon Ree, like that guy, who's still alive, by the way, and he looks great. And they're allegedly going to make a Best of the Best Part 5. There's talk about that, and I hope it happens. Like that guy should have been a leading man the minute Best of the Best 1 came out. And I'm not talking about the 6 sequels or 4 sequels that came out afterwards. I'm talking about like other movies too, and it is what it is. It is what it is. But I think
it's been a problem of Hollywood, representation's been, forever.
And it's always going to be that way.
It's funny because as we're recording this is today's Daniel Day Kim's birthday. And I'm like, he's probably the closest thing we have to like an Asian leading man. And I mean, I think he should get bigger roles than what he has. He's fantastic.
I just wish, and I'm sure you agree with this too, I just wish that we can name on our hand 5 white actors, blah, 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 but we can name on our fingers, people of color that are represented in Hollywood. And I wish it was more, that's my little soapbox rant of saying, I wish it was just more balanced, but it is what it is. It's not, maybe it'll change some way down the road, but go watch the movies that make you happy. Go watch, Best of the Best or what was the one with the black Emmanuel and the mummy and Popeye that I know is the Dragon Lives Again.
The Dragon Lives Again. Yeah, there were so many.
That's on Corey's list.
Yeah, and the problem is a lot of them had different names here that they had overseas and stuff like that. So yeah, use this documentary as maybe a checklist of other movies to watch. I give this thing 2 thumbs up, man. Two what do you call nunchucks?
Thumbchucks.
How about that? 2 thumbchucks up.
I'll give 2 thumbchucks up for that.
It's a great documentary. It's everything you want. I learned a lot in it. I was entertained. It was heartfelt. It had a point. It had it was everything you want in a documentary. It was a very, very well done documentary, but that makes sense. The producer of it has done 2 other documentaries that we covered on this show. So
I promise you that won't be the case next year. I'll pick something different.
Oh, you didn't plan it,
It's not on purpose.
It was not on purpose. It's just, it's a good fucking documentary. What do you want, So
right.
Yeah, I'd say go out, check out The Clones of Bruce. I suggest buying it because I think it's a great documentary to have, especially if cult cinema is your thing. I think this is an absolute must-own cult cinema documentary.
Yes, I totally agree. And we will be, obviously following up this episode with Corey's pick for the month of August as far as documentaries are concerned. And I'll just give this a little tease, but going into September, speaking of cult movies, we are featuring a very famous cult director / writer. So it just fits in with the Podcasting After Dark mold. Like this documentary, The Clones of Bruce, is quintessential Podcasting After Dark. The next one we do is a piggyback off of the month of July, our programming that we did on Podcasting After Dark. So I'll just leave that as it is. If you're a subscriber to Podcasting After Dark's Wrap Up After Dark on Patreon, patreon.com/Podcasting After Dark, you'll know what it is. If you're not, consider becoming a Patreon member and you can check it out, listen to that, and find out what it is. Otherwise, you'll hear it next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in a couple weeks.
Yeah, 2
weeks. In a couple weeks, because we've got 80s Kids
Mm-hmm.
Unite coming up. 80s Kids Unite monthly, and then we'll have the episode Corey's pick.
Yep. Yep, it's always a fun month. I love August, man. I love these documentaries. We don't really get to cover documentaries the rest of the year, and because we don't cover documentaries, I don't really get to watch documentaries because I mostly just watch what we're covering. But this was a lot of fun, dude. I'm excited to rewatch it. I'm excited to dive into some of these movies that they mention in here, especially the one with the boobies. And I'm excited for our next documentary. But yeah, Zach, September's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for that as well, our crossover month. But we're just kicking August off, and it's already off to a blast, and I'm having a hoot. I'm having an absolute hoot. So thank you, Zach, for bringing Enter the Clones of Bruce to the table. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side, and I'm not going to be racist.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
Hello, my name is Anna, and if you're into scary stories and creepy real-life happenings, then I think you will love my podcast. Let me tell you a scary story. Join me every week as I read to you stories of the paranormal that actually happen to ordinary people. These are things that can't be explained and don't always make much sense, and they are sure to intrigue and to give you the shivers. So join me on your favorite podcast listening platform and let me tell you a scary story.